G'day, I'm Warwick Schiller, and I want to talk about the term never say never. You know, because this is Chance. So he's, you've probably seen some videos of Chance. He's been around here since he was a foal. He's 3 now. And I did something with him when he was very, very young, like first couple of days he was born, that a few years ago I would have said you would never, ever want to do that. And what I did was, you know, when they're first born, you've got to give them an enema and treat their umbilical cord. So I got a hold of him. He was only this big. I got a hold of him and held on to him. And of course, he struggled. I didn't let him go. And then, you know, Robyn did the umbilical cord and did the enema. And then I didn't let him go. I kept holding on to him and waited for him to struggle again before I let him go. And you're probably thinking, that is crazy. Why would you do that? Because that would teach him to struggle, wouldn't it? Now, I didn't do it every day. What do you got there? A splinter? I didn't do it every day by any means, but I did it that one time. And the reason I did it is, you know, over the years, I have looked into different books about trauma. And if you haven't read a book called Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine, or another book called The Body Keeps the Score by a man named Bessel van der Kolk, both of those talk about how trauma is stored in the body, and it's the flight or fight instinct has not worked through. And you know, in the past I used to do a lot of imprinting and stuff with foals and you know, get them used to all sorts of stuff. But what I realize is you lose a little bit of the horse when you do that, and they have a bit of stored trauma, they have a bit of stored concern in there. Oh, Chance, you just love everything, don't you? Anyway, I did that with Chance. And as you can tell, it hasn't affected him wanting to struggle and get away from me. And he's been the easiest horse to do anything with, like the easiest. Like you've probably seen the video of the first time I went to load him on a horse trailer. I walked up to the horse trailer and I turned to the camera to talk about how I was going to go about it, and he just climbed in. You know, here I've been working on teaching him to come up beside me on the mounting block because he's 3 now, and I'm probably going to start him under saddle sometime soon. And within a couple of days, he got to where I could just give him the cue and he would just side pass up to me on the thing. And he's just been the easiest horse to do anything with. But day 2 or day 1, I think it's probably day 1 with him, I did something that about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago now, I probably would have said, never, ever do that. And so it's, you know, it's one of those, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. But once you start to understand how trauma is stored in the body and things like that, for me, I start to realize that, you know what, the way we handle these foals early on and leave some of that stored trauma in there, and then later on they're stiff and we've got to try to get them to bend. And this horse here is the most flexible. He really responds to this. You know, he's just so soft, he can put his body anywhere. Not that I've done a lot with him, but yeah, he's been a bit of an experiment. And we've got a foal named Rupert. And Rupert started out as a little bit of a wild man, and he's very kind of flighty and feely and stuff like that. But he's turned out exactly the same way. I mean, he's only 10 or 11 months old now. We've only just weaned him. We weaned him about 10 months. But he's been exactly the same way. And it's just, you know, these 2 horses have been a bit of an experiment. And yeah, I'm really so glad that I took a deep dive into the trauma stuff, because once you really get into it, it makes a lot of sense. And those 2 books are about humans, and we're always taught, you know, you're not supposed to anthropomorphize, and anthropomorphizing is you know, projecting human emotions onto horses. But what you have to remember is all that trauma stuff is about the mammalian nervous system. It's about mammals. It's not about people. Okay, all animals have the thing. In that book, one of those books, they talk about a video taken in Antarctica where they are shooting polar bears out of a helicopter with a tranquilizer gun because they're going to tag them. And they show this polar bear running, and when they shoot him with the tranquilizer gun, he goes out and he's laying on the ground. And when he comes to, and his legs are running, he completes that trauma response. And I think a lot of times with, you know, overhandling young horses or hanging onto them so they can't struggle and get away, or even people that, like, you know, want to tie a horse up and let it pull back till it doesn't get away, all that leaves some trauma in there that comes out as stiffness or resistance or whatever, and all the things that you're trying to fix with horses that you think that's, you know, they're stiff or resistant or whatever they are. And for me, I just think it's stored up trauma in there. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that, and why you got to be careful with the whole "I'd never do that" thing, because you might have to say never say never.